Hello everyone, Recapped Mystery here. Welcome back. Today, I'm going to explain a drama comedy film called Gifted. Watch out and take care. Frank Adler is reminding his niece, Mary, that it is time to get ready for school. He informs her that he is preparing a special meal for her. Mary is hesitant and makes excuses, such as who will care for her monocular cat, Fred. Frank assures her that Fred will be okay. She requests the special brunch she was warned about, and Frank simply declines. To her chagrin, he shows her a box of Kellogg's cereal with the word special printed on it. Frank drops Mary off at the bus stop, where she begins her first day at school. Roberta, Frank's next-door neighbor, follows him back to his house. She communicates her worry regarding Mary's attendance at school. She fears that something will happen to her. Frank appears tense. Later, Mary arrives at school, looking as if she'd rather be anywhere but here. Bonnie, her instructor, walks around the classroom asking the students easy maths tasks. Mary looks down on her and the rest of the class, since she believes the questions are straightforward. The teacher begins to ask Mary more difficult questions. Mary responds to them easily. As the questions become more difficult, especially when it comes to multiplication, Mary pauses for a moment, which Bonnie interprets as her cue to quit. Following a few moments of silence, Mary correctly solves the multiplication question. Bonnie takes out the calculator to double-check that is correct. She is perplexed and realizes Mary is not your typical child. Miss Davis, the principal, is introduced to the first graders. The class lavishes her with respect. Mary acts nonchalantly, yelling at Davis and Bonnie to phone Frank and tell him to please get her out of here. Frank arrives later that day to take up Mary. Bonnie speaks with him. She tries to persuade him that Mary is not a typical child. Frank waves her off, explaining that it was merely the Trachtenberg approach that Mary utilized. Calculate the maths questions asked by Bonnie in class. Bonnie claims Mary is just 7 years old, to which Frank says he learned the same approach when he was 8, so it's not a big issue. Bonnie later looks into the Trachtenberg method after hearing about it from a friend. Frank is constructing a boat. Mary asks if they can take the boat for a spin. They spend time at the beach together. They talk about many topics, and Frank informs Mary that her mother would prefer that she make friends. Mary takes Fred to school and introduces him to her friends. She informs them that he has only one eye. The children inquire, how did he lose his eye? Mary reacts with, she is unaware of this because she discovered him in this state in the trash and, in a sense, saved him. Bonnie develops feelings for Mary. She hands over her extra assignment, confident that she will complete it quickly than most students. Mary grins at Bonnie, and Bonnie reciprocates with a loving smile, one of her very own. They get along nicely in class. Bonnie investigates the Adler family more. Her initial investigation into Frank Adler's information yields no good results. She eventually reads about Frank's sister Diane Adler. Diane is a kid prodigy who excels at mathematics. Seymour Shankland, an MIT professor, describes her as remarkable, adding she has an excellent voice, an intellect capable of assisting the globe. Bonnie discovers as she reads on that Diane died. She was 27 years old. With her brother, Frank, she left behind a daughter named Mary. Bonnie arrives at Ferg, their neighborhood pub, to meet Frank. Frank reveals himself to her. He informs her that Diane arrived up abruptly at his house with a baby Mary while he was late for a date. She informed Frank that she needed to speak with him. Frank rejected her, claiming he'd listen to her later. He has returned from his date. When he arrived home that night, he discovered Mary on the couch and Diane on the bed. The floor of the bathroom, though it isn't entirely his fault, he believes he should have known better. Bonnie inquires about additional family members. Frank responds that Mary's biological father did not survive. He abandoned Diane after a month. His mother is a very severe, unforgiving woman, through and through. He is British. Mary is on her way to school via bus. She watches her classmate climbing the bus with a well-made project in hand. At first, she is concerned, believing that her project is inadequate. The youngster is attempting to find his way. A 12-year-old bullies him, causing him to tumble and ruin his work. The bully and the other kids start laughing and mocking him. Mary arrives. to his aid and orders the children to stop. She smacks the bully across the face with a book. Later, as Frank walks inside Mary's classroom, he encounters the bully, who is bleeding from the nose. He promptly checks up on Mary to ensure her well-being. Davis, the principal, helps Frank understand that beating people up is not permitted, and Frank tells her so, that he'll make sure Mary understands. Even though he admires her for standing up to a bully, the principal expresses her desire for Mary to attend Oaks Academy for Gifted Education, where she can be educated at a level that matches her capabilities. Frank raises the subject of money. She guarantees Mary a full-ride scholarship. Frank twists the "Mary should be treated as a normal child and sent to a regular school," she says. Bonnie asks if he is certain about his decision, to which he responds that he is unsure. Mary apologizes to her students for her inappropriate behavior. She and the rest of the class praise Justin, her classmate's little brother, informing him that his zoo was the best art endeavor he'd ever seen. Frank and Mary return home to look for her grandmother. Evelyn was standing on their porch. Evelyn brings her a nice laptop and a book. Charles Zimmer writes about advanced algebra. Mary informs her with disdain that she has already studied the book and is now studying differential equations. Frank requires her to thank him. Evelyn is dissatisfied with Frank's living situation and confronts him about it. Frank and Evelyn have lunch together. She expresses concern for Mary and requests that she to live in a better environment. She informs Frank that the authorities will be contacted. Diane would not want her to have custody of Mary. According to Frank, Evelyn dials Diane, Mary's mother, and Frank are both weak. She informs him quietly that this case will be heard in court. When Frank and Mary hang out, she asks him questions about God and faith. He claims he has his own opinion, which may be incorrect, and hence has no right to spoil her point of view. Mary brings up Roberta. He claims that Roberta has faith and that she adores her. He assures her that he knows everyone will end up together, and that's all that matters. Roberta demonstrates her profound concern for them by appearing in court to aid Frank in gaining Mary's custody was challenged by his mother. Evelyn makes it apparent that she intends to accompany Mary to Massachusetts. Frank wishes for her to remain with him. Later, Frank asks Roberta to keep an eye on Mary for the night. Roberta agrees, noting that she is only a neighbor and not a blood relative. She would rather talk to a family or someone whose opinion she values, yet she adores Mary. Mary spends the night at Roberta's, singing and laughing with her. Bonnie and Frank run into each other at the bar. She informs him that it was not she who released the information. In the case of Davis, over drinks, they become closer and have interesting conversations. Bonnie informs him that she can't afford to be intimate with him, yet they end up spending the night together. Mary is looking for a DVD at Frank's house. Bonnie is discovered sneaking out of Frank's room and makes a joke about it. Frank discovers this and becomes enraged. He's frustrated since he can't have his own life for even a short period of time. She becomes agitated and departs. Frank later apologizes to Mary, and the two reconcile. As he checks his mail outside, Roberta slams Frank for his irresponsible behavior. Mary learns that she will be spending 2 days in Boston with her grandmother. When Mary and her grandmother travel to Boston, she comes upon family photos. She has images of her mother and grandma when she was younger. Bonnie and Frank become increasingly closer when they return to Florida. Evelyn drives Mary to university and educates her about the 7 millennium problems. Mary is a Gregory Perelman, who worked on the Poincare conjecture, was depicted. Evelyn recalls how, if Diane had completed the puzzle, she may have been honored and her image hung on the wall. The Navier-Stokes equation is a mathematical formula. Mary expresses her desire to be featured on the wall as well. Professor Shankland assigns her a challenging equation to solve. After realizing after failing to solve it for a long time, he informs Evelyn that perhaps Mary isn't all that capable after all. Evelyn is marching frantically beside her, regretting her decision to visit Shankland in the first place. First, when Mary informs her that the equation was incorrect and thus unsolvable, Mary corrects the equation. As they return to Shankland, she solves it all the way to the finish. Shankland was left feeling overwhelmed. Mary informs Frank when they return home. Evelyn is sweet, but she does not want to live with her. He assures her that she will not to leave. Mary encounters Pat, a social worker who asks her several questions about her life. Mary mentions watching Ultimate Fighting Championship with Frank. She also informs her that he pledged to keep her and that he's a wonderful man. Pat inquires as to why she believes this, which she responds that Frank has wanted her since the beginning, regardless of her intelligence. Mary's biological father appears in court. He wants Evelyn to gain custody of Mary. Frank's attorney embarrasses father, who realizes he doesn't even know who he is, his daughter's middle name, and he has never met her in person. In court, Frank triumphs. He leads her to her vehicle. She expresses her displeasure with being at odds with her son. They've always been at odds. According to Frank, Mary shuts herself away and sobs uncontrollably because her absentee father does not visit her while he is in town. Frank afterwards drives to the hospital. Mary and Roberta were present. They are all waiting for the birth of a baby boy. Mary is informed by Frank that she was born exactly like this, and everyone was overjoyed. He informs her that he has broken the Everyone was informed of Mary's birth. Mary rejoices with the families at the hospital. Evelyn will testify in court later. Frank's attorney catches her baseball reference. He and Evelyn have a furious argument about Diane never being permitted to do anything except for studying mathematics. She never participated in sports or led a regular life. Frank's lawyer mentions Paul, Diane's first love, when she was 17. Paul and Diane fled to a skiing resort in Vermont. He criticizes Evelyn for pursuing a lawsuit against him. Diane was distraught as a result of the kidnapping charges, and she attempted suicide in 1999. Evelyn claims there was nothing serious and that she did her best to be a good mother to Diane. Frank testifies that he is a freelance boat repairer. Evelyn's counsel raises concerns about Mary's health, education, and life. Frank, he insists on treating her like a regular child. The attorney also mentions Mary assaulted the school bully, and how he once assaulted a man. Frank claims it was in self-defense against an intoxicated man in a pub and admits to spending the night in jail as a result of the event. Later that evening, Frank's attorney offers temporarily placing Mary with the foster family. When she reaches the age of 12, she will be able to make a choice in court about her living arrangement. Tampa is home to the foster family. Frank can easily visit her because she is only 30 minutes away. Evelyn would also be allowed to visit, feeling like you've run out of options. Mary is sent to live in Tampa by him. She doesn't take it lying down. She screams and begs Frank to not leave her alone, reminding him that he promised not to leave her alone. Roberta and Frank are saddened by Mary's absence. Later, Frank informs Bonnie that he believed many times, "I considered handing Mary over to child services, but I couldn't let her go." He holds himself responsible for the mess. He wants to pay Mary a visit but is refused. She had informed the foster parent that she does not wish to visit him. Frank is devastated. He is consoled by Roberta. Bonnie discovers an adoption pet poster with Fred's photo on it. She forwards it to Frank, who rushes over to Animal Services and saves Fred as well as 2 other cats. Evelyn is the one who initially placed Fred for adoption. Frank and Roberta race to see Mary and are successful in reuniting her when Frank appears. Evelyn, the documentation indicating Diane completed the proof for the Navier-Stokes equation. He informs Evelyn that Diane requested that this be publicized after her mother's death. That is, Evelyn did not grant Diane's wishes. Frank and Mary eventually reconcile and marry. They are overjoyed to be together as they drive away with Roberta. Evelyn bursts into tears when she sees the tear-stained notes with doodling on them. She dials MIT and speaks with Shankland. Frank chooses Mary after she graduates from university. They converse in the car. He delivers her a book about existence written by René Tilde, copyright Descartes. She makes a joke about it with him. Frank drops her off at the park, where she meets up with the other girls, Scouts, and enjoys playing with them. In the distance, Frank beams lovingly at Bonnie. The conclusion. Please subscribe to assist the channel, turn on notification and leave a like. Thank you for taking the time to watch. See you again soon.